Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Nashville Predators Throwback 2000 franchise mode here in NHL 24. So in last episode, we had a pretty good draft, drafting some really good prospects for our prospect pool, which I'm very excited to see them develop, and hopefully our team is looking pretty good in the next remaining years. As you can see, our unsigned list now has a lot of good talents on it, a lot of low elites that we just recently drafted, guys like Artmeyer, Bowl, Brody, I think, was also this year. Corzini is going to be probably jumping to the AHL right away, which is exciting as a 17-year-old. Like, we definitely have a really, really solid prospect pool as long as all these guys start developing, which hopefully a lot of them start to do that. And we also have a goaltender prospect as well now in Versteeg, just in case for some reason Sedin doesn't develop into being that great either. So we are starting to develop quite the team, and I'm very excited for the future, especially with Spezza, Van Allen, Marita probably leading the way on this team's roster. Like, that could potentially be like a top line of our team is Marita, Spezza, and Van Allen, unless we want to split Marita and Van Allen up because both of them are pretty good goal scorers. However, this would be a nice sniper, playmaker, power forward combination, which is very exciting. So, yeah, there's a lot of still work to do in this offseason. We do need to bring in some more defensemen, just basically to fill up their defensive core a bit, because at the moment we do not have a full defensive core, and we pretty much just want to fill up that portion of our team, and also probably trade away Thomas Vokoun because we do have Rick DiPietro and Marcus Sedin as probably our 1-2 punch next season. So we are going to have to make a couple changes to the roster before we actually start up next season. And we aren't going to actually start simulating next season in this episode because we are going to be taking a look at every team's lineup just to see what they have in their roster and how they have changed over these first few years of this franchise mode. But anyways, before we get into the free agent signings, let's get into your guys' comments now and see what you guys have to say about last episode. And then we will get into some free agent signings and also probably trading away Thomas Vokoun and getting maybe some picks back in return. So the first two comments are from Michael Dose. The first one says, start Corzini in the AHL. I'd have him play a full season there since he's only 17. And then following season, bring him up to Nashville somewhere around an 82 to 83 rating would be my guess. And yeah, that's pretty much what I plan to do with Corzini, is do something like that. So let's already go ahead and give him his ELC. And he will be in the AHL for the first few years of this franchise, or first year at least of his career. And then he'll come up and he'll probably end up being a nice top four defenseman for us as early as next season. And the exciting thing about having Corzini is we also have a lot of other good defensive prospects like Shea Weber, Brent Seabrook, Ryan Suter, and also Jacques. So all these guys could be on our blue line as early as the next few years. The good thing is we also have a lot of right-handers too, so it does give us a little bit more depth on a area that not a lot of teams have good depth on. Michael also says, sushi on the Sharks and make anyone else laugh, or is it just me? And I think it's probably just you, because I don't find it super crazy funny, but maybe it's just because I know who Radoslav Sushi is. But Sushi, who is on the Sharks at the moment, we were getting offered him in a trade. I don't know if we'll do that trade, potentially, but yeah, Radoslav Sushi, solid defenseman. I don't know if it's actually pronounced closer to sushi, or if it's more like suchi, or, sushi. It's a little bit maybe different. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, but I would assume it's sushi, but honestly, I have no idea. The next comment is from Siren Taco. It says, really solid draft. I like how you went through your individual picks to see who was taken in real life. Last season's playoff appearance was probably a fluke, so you shouldn't necessarily have your sights on them this time around. As such, look for a defenseman that you could bring in on a cheap one-year deals. Hopefully within the next year or two, more of your prospects will be NHL ready. Then you can make a serious push. And I totally agree, just filling up the defensive core with some random guys on one-year deals makes a lot of sense. Because basically it would be technically signing these guys until Jacques, Weber, Seabrook, Suter are all ready to jump to our defensive core, especially guys like Shea Weber, because Shea Weber should make it in the next few years. Same with Jacques. Seabrook and Suter might take a little bit longer, but if we start getting obviously those type of guys into our defensive core, that would be good, because at the moment we have Delmore, Belak, Corzini's going to be in the AHL as I mentioned, and then we have Trevor Daly, and then also we have Brooks Orpik, Andrew Hutchinson, so we kind of only need to have maybe another couple, two or three more top fours, maybe. Because I'll probably run Belak and Daly as a top six, unless I want to run Brooks Orpik actually too. So maybe we only need two more top fours. Yeah, I think that's probably what our play is. Two top four defensemen, just to help us have a little bit better depth on the defensive core, and also give Sedin a better chance at winning some games in his rookie season. In the last and final comment is from Jared the Rabbit, who says, damn, Wesley Wojtek Kowalski Korzeni is 78 out of the draft. Put him in the AHL for 0405 or maybe 0506 as well. So he's still calling him the Polish equivalent to what his name probably would be. But yeah, he's saying to play him in the AHL for 0405 and maybe 0506. I guess it depends on how good he develops in his first year in the AHL. I feel like he could almost be listed as a top 6 defenseman halfway through the season. But honestly, we're going to probably keep him down in the HL for 1 full year, and that will be very exciting. He does wear number 93 as a defenseman, which is kind of cool too. So we'll see how Korzeni develops. You got to say it though like this, the Korzeni, remember, from the last episode. So there is all that, and I think we're ready to get into some free agent signings. We're not going to take a look at what the AI are signing this offseason and trading, just because I do want to look at everybody's roster at the next part of this episode as well. So let's first actually get into Thomas Vokoun's trade, because we were looking at potential offers for Vokoun in the last episode, and there was that one with Radoslav Suchi, which might be intriguing, because we do need defensive help, because we don't have that defenseman to fill out our defensive core that much. So there was the one 3rd, 5th, and Suchi, which is kind of interesting. Kostitsyn, a 4th, and Suchi is also kind of intriguing. Honestly, that one might be better, because that 3rd round pick could literally be anything. It could just be a medium 9. So I might be looking at this one instead. So let's look at this deal from the Sharks, see if it makes some sense for us. So we get ourselves a prospect in Kostitsyn, who will be playing in the AHL. 69 at 19 is pretty decent, to be honest. Looks pretty balanced, has very good passing. I don't know how he developed his passing that well, but he can play either wing too, which is nice. We also get a 4th round pick, which is probably going to be a late 4th round pick, because the Sharks are probably still getting this, my guess. And then Radoslav Suchi has been kind of a good top 6. Wasn't great last year in San Jose. They did make the playoffs, though. Yeah, Sushi's okay to bring in. He'd be probably one of those top 4 defensemen that's a stopgap type of player. So I think this is the trade we're going to do. So Thomas Vokoun, even though he was fantastic last year during the regular season, was not good at all in the playoffs. This is probably the most we're ever going to be able to get for Thomas Vokoun, because he's going into the last year of his deal. And obviously we have DiPietro and Sedin for next season. So Thomas Vokoun is going to be headed to San Jose. Gets to enjoy the California sun. We get Andrei Kostitsyn, who actually played for Nashville at one point, and Radoslav Suchi, and whoever gets drafted with that 4th round pick. So best of luck to Thomas Vokoun in San Jose. And there you go. Thomas Vokoun is off to San Jose. A lot of people are probably not going to like that on this team, but that's okay. We have to make some tough decisions, and that is one of them. And also, I didn't realize San Jose had Marc-Andre Fleury. We're going to be able to see that in this part of this episode, but they didn't really need Thomas Vokoun, but they threw me an offer. So that was kind of weird. Mike Smith, I guess, will be back in the AHL for another year. They have a little bit of a logjam in net, too, because they also have Toskala and Hedberg. So I honestly don't know why they offered me a trade for Vokoun. Maybe I shouldn't have made that trade, because it's not really realistic, but it is what it is. But now you can see with our goaltending situation, we have our goalies set up pretty much. So we have DiPietro and Sedin in the NHL. Then we'd be running Dan Ellis and Jimmy Howard in the AHL. Likely at some point, we will probably have to trade away Dan Ellis, because likely it would be Howard and Versteeg in the AHL at some point as well. So we do have more decisions to make on that front. But now we have Suchi on our defensive core, which means we only need, let's see what we got here. 1, 2, don't count Korzeni, 3, 4, 5, and in depth with Hutchinson. So yeah, we technically only need one more top 4 defenseman. So let's try and bring in a solid defenseman, not somebody too good, but let's bring in somebody solid at least, to make sure we have a better chance at winning some games as well, because obviously the young guys on this team need to develop well, and we do not want to have another terrible season like we did 2 years ago. So let's go to free agency and see what's available again, because I honestly forget. Oh yeah, well, that's right. We let go of Greg Johnson, which it recently just came out that he had he had some concussion. He had CTE before he passed away or something like that from playing, which is unfortunate. Let's see. So best defenseman, Daryl Sador. Those guys are way too high quality. Brian Leach wouldn't want to come to a team not making the playoffs, so it doesn't make sense there. We could bring back Hal Gill, but probably a right-handed defenseman would make more sense, I'm guessing. Let me just actually take a look at our left-to-right situation, because I want to make sure we have this team doing somewhat solid. Obviously not the best team in the world, but we have 2 right-handers because Corzini's going to be in AHL. We have 2 left-handers, and there's another left and a right. So probably either probably another right-hander. Yeah, probably another right-hander because Hutchinson would be depth. So let's find ourselves a right-handed defenseman. Not Adam Foote, though, because I think it said Adam Foote was free agent, right? Right? Yeah, Adam Foote is the best right-hander. I don't think it really makes sense for us to bring in Adam Foote. He's only 32 years old, but yeah, I don't think it really makes much sense. Was in Colorado, did really well there. Was not too good in Boston. Then got dealt to Anaheim, it looks like. And he was played in the AHL. I honestly don't know why that happens, but especially with no salary cap, doesn't make sense at all. Teppo Numminen has dropped off a cliff. Damn, I didn't realize Teppo Numminen was still there. He was actually playing pretty good last year, too. Kind of surprised he's dropping. 35 points. Nothing in the playoffs, though, last year, 2 years ago. Yeah, he's actually a pretty good defenseman. For 79, like, I know he's not technically wanting to probably go to a team that's not going to make the playoffs, but it might be okay to bring in Teppo Numminen just to help drive the offense on the power play with, like, guys like Marita. Yeah, I think that's going to be our option. We're going to bring in Teppo Numminen, if he wants to play here, that is. Because then, like I said, we play him on the power play with the guys like Marita, guys like, who else, like Spezza. I think that just gives us more depth on the power play, and it gives us more offensive options. So, Teppo Numminen is going to be that defenseman. He wants a 2-year deal, but he is 35, and he's likely going to drop off throughout the season. So, I'll just try and give him a bit more money to entice him. The only other team interested is Tampa Bay, and they're not doing well in this either. So, there shouldn't be too much competition to get Teppo in. If we don't get Teppo, we could always go with somebody a bit younger, though, like Matthew Dandino, if he's still there. There will be still options available, like Joe DePenta, even. He's only 25, so Joe DePenta wouldn't be a bad option, or Mike Weaver, if they are still available. So that's going to be our only free agent signing I think we need to make, because I feel like we have enough offensive players, right? I just got to double check on that, because I honestly don't remember. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, I think we're good on forwards. So, let's see if Teppo Numminen accepts and joins the Nashville Predators. And then we could get, obviously, to the start of next season and get our line set up. And then we'll take a look at every team around the league, because I am actually pretty intrigued to see what the teams are looking like at this point. So there is Teppo. He's on board as a 36-year-old, so welcome to Teppo Numminen. And I think that's all we really needed to do this offseason, correct? Yeah, we have our coaching staff, pretty much. We could use more coaches in the AHL, but I'll let the AI figure that out. And we already have our scouts. Okay, so that's all good, too. All right, well, let's begin the sim up to next season. Normally, I would take a look at the free agent signings and stuff that happens in the offseason, but honestly, since we're looking at the team's rosters in a little bit anyways, I think that'll be a little bit more cool anyways. Just to kind of get a better gist of what's happening in the league. Oh, that's actually hilarious. I got to get my remove my face for a second, just so I could take a screenshot of this, because that's hilarious. And you guys probably are reading this and laughing your heads off as well. Rick DiPietro is still an RFA, and it's funny because the New York Islanders tried to offer sheet him on a 1-year deal, but I'm going to match that offer easily. I didn't expect him to offer sheet him. That's funny. That is hilarious. I think we might have another RFA still. Let me just double check on that. But, of course, the New York Islanders wanted to go after DiPietro. No more RFAs. That's good. But that would have been funny, though, like, because maybe they're just trying to save us from paying him that crazy contract that he got paid as an Islander or something like that. But who knows? I don't even know how DiPietro's going to do as a starter. But trading away Thomas Vokoun was probably going to happen regardless. Because obviously the real-life Nashville Predators had to trade him away to the Florida Panthers. Or did they just let him go to free agency? I can't remember. But eventually, obviously, he went to Florida. Played also in, like, Washington and Pittsburgh and such. So I still think of Vokoun as a Nashville goalie first and foremost. All right, let's go to edit lines here and see what we got to do. So let's first go to roster moves, because likely it's going to call up Corzini, which I do not want just yet. So, in terms of our goaltenders, wow, Sedin actually jumped to an 82, so DiPietro's job might be on the line soon too, which is interesting. Wasn't expecting that, but they are a starter and a backup goalie, which is good. And Dan Ellis is a minor starter, but he is very close to being a backup quality goaltender. So we could always trade away Dan Ellis if we want Jimmy Howard to get more ice time in the AHL. Corazini's going to get sent down, so we're going to have Delmore, Daly, Suchi, Belak, Numanen, and then we're going to call up Brooks Orpik and Andrew Hutchinson. There we go. Perfect. So that our defensive core looks atrocious, but we do have 3 left-handers and 4 right-handers, so that's good. What else we got here? Anybody I want to call up from the AHL? Svatos is close, but he's not ready yet. I think 1 more year in the AHL would be good for him. Cesar's okay as depth because he's already like 26 almost, right? I think. Yeah, he's already 26, so pointless to not have him in the NHL. Travis Moen's getting close to as a 4th line option, which is nice, but that's good. And then centers, nobody I would call up here. Yeah, I think that is good. Okay, let's get into editing these lines and setting it up. Very excited. So we want to do a top line of Rita Spezza Sullivan is actually not bad, but I do want Hartnell maybe on the top line instead. And then we could run Sully on the second line with Legwand and Nagy. Rosa was good last year too, so he could play alongside Nilsson and Thomas Kopecky. And Barteshko, actually Barteshko should probably be higher than Nilsson, to be honest. Yeah, probably. So we'll go with Nilsson as a 4th liner instead. So this is what our team's looking like right now offensively. And that's actually nice. I really like that top line. Spezza, Hartnell, Marita. Second line looks pretty nice. We might have to think about trading away Steve Sullivan soon because he might make us too good. Legwand, Nagy generated actually an X Factor in Magnetic, so that's kind of cool. Third line looks good, but Barteshko, Kopecky, and Rosa. So 2 Slovaks, I think, right? Is that 2 Slovaks? I think so, right? No, a Slovak and a Chechen. I forgot that Pavel Rosa was Chechen. I feel like that name almost sounds more Slovak, but it's not. And our 4th line is Marcus Nilsson, Dennis Arkhipov, and Martin Erat. Erat doesn't seem to be developing too well in this franchise mode, unfortunately. Unless I got him more ice time, but I don't really know where I could slot him in to get more ice time. Like, he'd have to be in, like, our top 6, where Sullivan is probably. So, if we trade away Sullivan, maybe we give a chance to Erat to get more ice time, but I don't know if he's going to develop anyways. Defensively, Daly, Delmore, Belak, Orpik, and then Suchi and Numanen. I don't mind it. I do not mind it. That's a really physical second pairing, though, because Orpik looked to hate like a truck. Wade Belak fought everybody he could, so that's pretty insane. Yeah, we'll keep the rest like that. Okay. Power play, Hartnell, Spezza, Nagy, Sullivan, Marita. I do feel like we need to take a forward off this unit. And I'm going to lean towards taking off Steve Sullivan on this one. So let's take Steve Sullivan off. Give Teppo Numanen some first line PP time. And then we will go with Sullivan here instead of Nilsson. So Steve Sullivan will play alongside Legwand and Rosa. Barteshko will come out. And we will put in Andy Delmore, I think. Yeah, we'll give Andy Delmore some time with Trevor Daly. That doesn't look too bad. Yeah, this is actually looking pretty good, this team, in terms of chemistry and all that. Yeah, I do not mind it whatsoever. 73. I feel like that's better than Hartnell. Yeah, Scott Hartnell will not be the center on that unit. Perfect. Penalty killers. Maria's getting penalty kill time. I'd like to see that. Yeah, I think this is good. So this is the team we're going to run this season. And then in the AHL, let's just go best lines for a second here. And then let's see if there's anybody that shouldn't be scratched. Lakis definitely should be playing. Anderson doesn't matter too much. So we just need to get Charlie Alakis into the lineup. Because Kostitsyn technically replaced him. I guess Darren Hadar will come on out of the lineup. Which is okay. So we'll get Alakis in here. And then we'll put this based on potential. So bottom 6, low elite, medium 9. Medium elite, so probably we want Winnick as a top liner. Klassen's already guaranteed to be that potential. Yeah, he's already exact, so we'll move the other guys up, unfortunately, for that. We'll get Alakis higher than, like, Moen and Scott, because those guys are, like, grindy guys. And we'll get Hall on the 4th line instead of Kostitsyn. That looks better. Defensively, Giordano and Corazini. That's exciting. Very exciting. I like that top pairing a lot. And then we have Schubert and Morrow. I would probably put, who's more offensively minded? I guess Schubert is, okay. And then these guys don't, Jared Smithson's playing defense. And it doesn't really matter too much because Jared Smithson's not bad defensively, so I'm okay with that. Kind of sucks, but it's alright. Yeah, that's fine. Goalie-wise, Dan Ellis, Jimmy Howard. Yeah, I don't mind it. That's good. All set and ready to go, which means now comes the exciting part. We're going to sim actually to the start of the regular season, so sim through the preseason. That's the only bit of simming we're going to be doing. Because I do want to take a look at every team's lines in this episode, and then that'll be it pretty much. Like, we won't do any regular season simulation, but let's see how we do in the preseason. Here we got 3 games. We shouldn't be a good team, still based on our defensive core, but our offensive core looks pretty nice, so who knows. Preseason, we win 6-3 over St. Louis. We're getting so many trade offers, it's kind of annoying, but I'm just going to keep declining them for now. And we win every single game of the preseason, which is kind of a good thing, but also might not be. As Marita led with 4 points through 3 games. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right. We will now take a look at some teams' lines once we get to the start of the regular season. We're still getting thrown tons of offers for Wade Belak, which is kind of funny. But let's take a look at every team's lines. So, let's go view lines, and we'll take a look through every single team. And then after that, we probably will maybe... I don't think we're going to simulate anything, but we'll probably just call it an episode at that point, because this is probably going to take a while anyways. So, anyways, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks are at this point, this is BO405, so they're getting close to actually being the Ducks, but that's still a few years away. Top line, Paul Kariya, Steve Ruchin, Timo Solani. Very filthy top line still. Ruchin definitely generated a lot of X factors because of Solani and Kariya. Second line, Luke Robitaille at 38 years old. It's kind of insane. Coming over from the LA Kings last year. It was really good for them. And didn't they win the Stanley Cup last year? Yeah, I think they did. So, the defending Cup champions. They also have Matt Cullen and Mark Parrish. Third line, Ronnie McColt, who's a generated guy. They drafted 4th round. Wow. That's quite the steal as a low 6. So, shout out to Ronnie McColt. Olli Jokinen as a third line center is crazy. That's a really good center depth. And then Johan Garpenlov at 36 years old. So that's a really nice top 9. Fourth line, Rafi Torres has made the NHL. I believe this might be his first season. Yes, it is. So shout out to Rafi Torres making the NHL at 22 years old. You also have Steve Reinprecht and Marty McInnis still playing on the Ducks at 34. All right, pretty good team. A little bit weak on the depth department, but really good down the middle. Defensively, Tverdovsky, Brad Brown, Drake Berehowski, our former defenseman, went over there. Nicholas Havlid, Brad Warenka, and Vitaly Vishnevsky. Not the strongest defensive core, but Tverdovsky's very good. And goaltending-wise, they have Byron Dafoe and Ed Belfour at 39 years old. Goddamn. Goddamn, the old man. He was in the AHL all last year when they won the Stanley Cup, too. Huh. But now he's their actual backup goalie. Scratch have Alex Kavanagh, Andy Sutton, and Philip Kuba. Yep, that's a pretty good Ducks team. I can definitely see why they won like the Stanley Cup last year, especially based on that top 6. In terms of the Phoenix Coyotes still at this point in time, Keith Tkachuk, Jeremy Roenick, Alex Kovalev. Okay, so Kovalev being on that top line is kind of interesting. Second line, Trevor Letowski. Okay, that's a big drop-off. Jeff Shantz, and Thomas Vanek has made the NHL at 19 years old. Wow. After 1 year in the AHL, 68 points last year. So, shout out to Thomas Vanek for making the NHL. Probably on schedule based on the fact that obviously he made his debut in 05-06. But obviously the lockout cut things out. Third line, Craig Johnson, Travis Green, and Chris Neal. Chris Neal as a Yote is very weird. And he's playing next to, obviously, the Sens' current head coach, which is kind of funny. Fourth line, Alex Steen has made the NHL at 20 years old. So the Yotes have some youth in their lineup, as well as Grayson Cook, who was recently drafted 8th overall. Damn. And Alexander Daigle is there at 29 years old. How is Daigle simulated in this? Not too bad. Not too bad. Pretty respectable. From a defensive standpoint, they have Merrick Malik, and Dennis Weidman has made the NHL at 20 years old. Huh, that's interesting. He played 20 games in the OHL, but also played in the NHL last year. Huh, that's interesting. Second pairing, Colin White, Matthew Schneider, Jason Strudwick, and some guy named Marcel Ottereis, who was a second-round pick last year. Damn. They have a lot of guys jumping into their NHL team right away. And in goalie-wise, they have Brian Boucher and Nikolai Hebibulin is still there at 32. Depth, they have this guy named Grachev, Matt Pettinger still playing. Gary Roberts is still playing at 38. Kind of surprised on that. So there is the Yotes, the Atlanta Thrashers. This should be interesting. Andrew Burnett, Lorenzo Jenner, and Alex Hemsky. Pretty good top line. Burnett still being there is kind of cool. And then Jenner has been a very interesting center that they drafted. When was it? First overall. Yeah, 2 years ago. And then Alex Hemsky, obviously, just making the NHL, it seems, 3 years ago. So he's been pretty good, too. 57 points last year. Second line has Ulf Nilstorp, who was just drafted first overall as well. So the Thrashers definitely have a lot of youth coming. They also have Juha Ullinen, Alexander Frolov. Third line of Dean McCammond, Mikko Koivu. Not bad. And then Jason Pominville as well. They actually have some really good youth players on this team. And a fourth line of Corey Perry, Patrick Stefan, and Oleg Kavasha. So, yeah, this is a neat team. Because you have Perry, you have Pominville, you have Mikko Koivu. Frolov's still young too. Nilstorp, Hemsky, Jenner. Like, they have definitely a good team in the future, I think. The question is if they could actually win a Stanley Cup, though. They also have Dmitry Malkin, Justin Cummins, Matt Walker, Greg DeVries, Darius Kasparaitis, and Christian Backman. They definitely need some defensive help. Cummins is pretty much that, and same with Malkin. And then goaltending-wise, they have Felix Potvin and Jonas Hiller at 21 years old. Wow. All right. And in depth, they have Rene Bourque, who's only 22, Jason Chimera, who's 24, and Mikhail Samuelson. Yeah, that's a pretty young team. Boston has Samsonov, Thornton, Rolston, Jeff O'Neill. Interesting. Jason Allison and Patrice Bergeron. Did Jason Allison start in Boston in this? He did, okay. I had to double check on that just to make sure. PJ Axelson, Anson Carter, and Jeff Carter. That's kind of hilarious. Anson and Jeff Carter. They're not related, of course, but still, that's kind of funny. Two Carters on the same line. Don't think I've seen that before. Now, fourth line of J. Pandolfo, Todd Warner, and Matt Cook on the Boston Bruins. Yeah, I should just get a screenshot of that just to send that over to Toogie. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to send that over to Toogie because that's almost like a hate crime right there. Matt Cook sucks. The top six the defensive pairings now have Kyle McLaren, Brent Sobel, Yuri Slager, Rohan Kearns, 5th overall pick a couple years ago, Nicholas Walling, and Matthias Tamander. So Matthias Tamander left us and found his way back in Boston again. That's interesting. Goaltending-wise, they have Mika Kiprusoff. That's pretty nice. And Jamie Storr. Scratch, they have Peter Buzek, Mike Rathje, and Jay McKee. So 3 defenders. The Buffalo Sabres. Miroslav Shatan, Chris Garatin, JP Dumont, Vanaganov, Barnes, Zherdev at 19. That's a nice top 6. Third line, Hoagland, Brown, and Dvorak. And a fourth line of Patrick Poulin, Brett McLean, and Ruslan Fedotenko. That's actually a pretty good-looking Sabres team. Nobody with the actual gold X factor on this forward core, but that's still good. Defensively, Roman Hamrlik, Yuri Karlotti. That's weird. Aaron Ward and Ruslan Saleh. And then Carlos Scrashtins went over there as well. Why did Scrashtins and Saleh have to sign on the same team? Makes me think of the 2011 plane crash again. And then also Richard Schmelik is there. That right side is pretty weak, but that left side's nice. Goaltending-wise, they have Martin Biron and Damian Rhodes. Okay. Dmitry Kalinin, Brad Bombardier. Calgary. Obviously, in real life, they would have went to the Cup Finals the year before this. Christian Huselius, Mark Savard, and Jerome McGinley. Nice top line. Second line, Valerie Bure, Samuel Paulson, and Michael Leclerc. Michael Leclerc found his way to Calgary, huh? Interesting. Third line, Stefan Yell, Thomas Pakanix, and Justin Williams. And a fourth line of Brent Burns, who's a forward in this, as well as Marcel Gotch and Oleg Saprikin. So they do have some younger guys coming. Defensively, Robin Regier, Derek Morris, Brad Ferentz, and Jordan Leopold, Ozzy Vananen, and Steve Montador. Goaltending, they have Jay Shiger still, and Craig Anderson has also made the Flames after he was drafted by them in real life. That's interesting. In terms of backup stuff, they have Rico Fata, Sean Avery as a depth forward, and some guy named Khalil McCarthy. Okay. So there's Calgary. Carolina, who would be 1 year away from going from the Cup Finals, or to the Cup Finals, has a much different team in real life for sure. Marcus Naslund, Brendan Morrison, Sammy Kapanen, Second line, Scott Walker has made himself into Carolina, which is hilarious. Did we trade him there? Yeah, we did trade him there. Okay, I wasn't sure if we traded him there. But he's with Todd White and Thomas Holmstrom. Third line has Alex Semin as an 85 already. Damn. Boyd Devereaux, Torsten Tamander. Fourth line, Joffrey Lupul, Harry York, and Bill Lindsay. Defensively, John Michael Isles, Marek Zedlichky, David Tanabe, Lance Ward, Greg Zanin, Vladimir Malikov, and goaltenders are Chick Manick and Graham. Scratches, they have Eric Perrin and Antti Laaksonen. Head to Chicago. Oh man. Okay, that top line's interesting. Heatley, Zhamnov, and Amonte. Kind of interesting seeing Heatley in Chicago. How's he done there? Relatively well. He's starting to become a good goal scorer. We'll see if he hits 50 in 06 and 07. That'd be interesting. Second line, some guy named Wanvig, Nylander, and Dezay. Really good second line. They also have Chubarov, Umberger, and Yachmanev. And a fourth line of our former guy, Andreas Johansson, Joseph Mara, and Chris Draper. Defensively, McCabe and Mironov, Brisebois and Markov, Galanov, and Ulanov. What the hell's with all the Russian defensemen? That's actually kind of hilarious. So Chicago's like the Red Army at this point, because Mironov, Markov, Galanov, and Ulanov might be the most Ovs I've ever seen on a lineup before. Goalie-wise, they have Trevor Kidd, and Patrick Waugh signed with the Blackhawks after his stint in Toronto. So we'll see what he does as a backup goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks. And in depth-wise, they have Steve McCarthy, Chris Herberger, and Tyler Arneson. All right. Colorado, Sakic, Forsberg, Hayduk, Mark Mowers is a second liner. Oof. And then Chris Drury, Alex Tanguay, Peter Schaefer, Steve Kuola, and Alan McCauley. Fourth line, Zelapukin, Zdeno Cigar. I don't know how it's pronounced, to be honest, still. And Mikko Eloranta. Defensively, Ozelinch and Boucher, Martinic and Strite. And then our Martinic, right? Yeah, it's Martinic. Erickson and Moran. Weird defensive core. They also have Abisher and Hackett between the pipes. O'Donnell and Skula, okay. We head to Dallas. Siplikov, Medano, LaPointe. Okay, weird top line. Dustin Brown has made it at 19 years old. Shout out to Dustin Brown. He's playing with Joe Nieuwendyk and Zach Parise. So Dallas has some youth in their lineup. Baranik, Lyashenko, and Falloon. Cizikas, Dominic Moore, and Clark Wilm. Defensively, that guy that just went 5th overall, Rensfeldt, is playing with Jason Smith. You also have Matt Karkner, and you also have Kim Jonsson, Andre Zuzin, Andrew Ferentz. So that's where Andrew Ferentz went. Okay. Goalie-wise, they have Mike Dunham and Ilya Brzgalov. And they also have Todd Harvey, Michael Sikora, and Eric Belanger. The Detroit Red Wings, Datsuk, Fedorov, and Pekka. Interesting top line. Second line has Groshek, Eiserman, and Kozlov. Third line, Zaminer, Zetterberg, and Morrow. Some guy named Lou Morrow. Fourth line, Jody Hull, Dave Scatchard, and Marty Reisner. All right. Detroit has definitely fallen off a lot. Lidstrom and Foote. Adam Foote signed with Detroit. That's an interesting one. I don't know how Colorado fans would feel about that. Huh. Yeah, that's a very weird one. They also have Dandino. So Dandino did re-sign back in Detroit. He's with Daryl Sador, who was also recently brought in. Modry and Sarch. Okay. And goalies are Osgood and Fred Brathwaite. Depth-wise, they have Yuri Fisher, Branislav Meze, and Derek Pont. In terms of the Oilers, I think we've seen them recently because of the playoffs, obviously, but still. Kovalchuk, Wade Guerin, Chris Clark was brought in, I think. Todd Marchand, Ryan Smith, Sean Bates, Sean Horkov, Grant Marshall. Grant Marshall, huh? I just recently heard about he had an injury back in junior that almost like fully paralyzed him, which is kind of crazy. Because I was watching like a clip of like the 92 draft. Sebastian Bordelot, Mike Comrie, and Mike Sullivan has found himself in Edmonton. Defensively, Nienema and Campbell, Pody and Lidman, Semenov, and Lebda. Okay. And goalies, Ryan Miller has taken over as the starting goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers as Kevin Weeks has fallen a little bit behind him. So Ryan Miller will become the new starter, and we'll see how good he could actually do as a starter. And they also have Lombardi and Knudsen as depth. Florida. Oh yeah, Florida's won multiple cups in this, so they're definitely filthy here. Eliash, Kozlov, Bure, crazy top line. Reichel, Niedermeyer, and Ray Whitney, really good top six. Third line, Stillman, Bajan, and Nelson Emerson. And a fourth line of Joel Ward at 23. Patrick Schellberg, and some guy named Loins. Defensively, spot check Boyle. So Dan Boyle has arrived. He might be in his rookie season. No, he's not. But he is arriving in terms of offense a bit. Sean Hill and Alexei Zhitnik. Brett Hedican, Robert Schwela. Goalies are Henrik Lundqvist and Tommy Salo. So Lundqvist is now the starter in Florida. He was the backup for the first 2 years of his career, but he's going to be a great starter. And in depth, they have Witt, Lazishin, and Laflamme. Okay. The LA Kings. Ryan Kessler. That's really weird. Kessler, Stumple, and Palfy. Murray, Lindgren, and some guy named Volpati. Medvinov, who's also generated with Fitzgerald and Greer. And a fourth line of Verbata. Peter Bondra went to the LA Kings, and he is playing center, which is kind of weird after playing with us in the playoffs and all that. So good luck to Peter Bondra. Chris Kunitz is also there in LA. Okay. Bergen, Blake, Corvo, and Green, and then you have Jeff Finger and Zbigniew McCulloch. Okay. Goaltending-wise, you have Backstrom and Skudra. So Backstrom has developed into being a good goalie. And in depth, they have Alatalo and Claude Lemieux, still at 39 years old. Montreal, Ruchinski, guy named Appleby, and Saku Koivu. I don't know why Saku Koivu is playing on the wing, but I will not question it. Second line, Zednik, Sholtok, and Savage. Third line, Breland, Linden, and Zubras. Jeez, Linden and Zubras being on third lines is crazy. Really good depth. Ryder, Ribeiro, and Battaglia. That center depth might be the most insane center depth I've ever seen. Using Mike Ribeiro as a fourth line center is very, very crazy. Defensively, Jovanovski and Tremblay, Markov and Sure, and they also have Caberlet and Hal Gill signed in Montreal after we let him go. So that's cool. So obviously he played for Montreal for a little bit. I also have Huey and Rollison. So Cristobal Huey left the LA Kings and went to... Actually, no, he didn't even start in LA. Yeah, that's right. He was in Montreal last year too, apparently. I don't know if I knew that he actually went to Montreal. I think I did because I remember him being in the AHL. And then Dwayne Rollison is the backup. Depth, they have Kovalenko, Murray, and Barnaby. Some grit. New Jersey. New Jersey looks still pretty good too. Sundin, Gomez, and Sikora. Silvanov, Arnott, and Holik. Mogilny. Adam Oates is there at 42 years old. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't retired yet. And Yuri Letnin. And a fourth line of Dackel, Laperriere, and Shervajanov. Defensively, they have Niedermeyer and Rafalski playing together, which is great. Rakunik and Ragnarsson, and a top six of Nordstrom and Barry. Goalies, Martin Brodeur still, and Jamie McLennan getting a chance to play with Martin Brodeur. That's cool. And depth, they have Dolan Brashear, Nolan Pratt, and Steve Stais. New York Islanders, Isbister, Connolly, Cherkovsky, Lanenbrunner, Metropolit, and Morrow. That center depth not too good in New York. Arvidsson, Lapointe, and Jim Campbell. Martin St. Louis a fourth liner on this team. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. He's not going to reach the heights he did in real life, unfortunately, but at least he's getting to play somewhere. Ethan Morrow there as well, and Ryan Malone. Defensively, Chara and some guy named Nick Budens. Rhett Warner and Kenny Johnson. Eric Brewer, Joe DePenta. Goaltending, they have Roberto Luongo still, but will he head to free agency soon? There's a chance. And they also have Manny Fernandez. Depth, they have Matthew Briron, Josh Green, and Daniel Charnquist. Alright. The New York Rangers. Derek Roy, Peter Nedved, and Todd Bertuzzi. Weird top line. Verada, York, and Simon. Chris Simon's the best player on this team. Okay. Chris Higgins, John Madden, and Dixon Ward. And a fourth line of Lundmark, Stoll, and Tony Tuzzolino. So Jared Stoll with the Rangers as he played with them for a little bit. That Tony Tuzzolino is a generated Tony Tuzzolino, though it's not the actual Tony Tuzzolino, or else that'd be insane. Defensively, Duncan Keith at 20 years old. That defensive core looks atrocious, though. But Duncan Keith's going to get to play with Darren Van Imp. You also have Sakaris and Kravchuk, Zalapsky, and David Hale. Goaltending, they have Marty Turco and Patrick Lalime. Not bad goaltending-wise, though. Perns, Adams, and Manny Malhotra as depth. The Ottawa Senators. Prospel, Yashin, Hossa. Nice. Alfredson, Briere, Ricci. Really good second line. Third line has Bonk, Johnson. They signed Greg Johnson. Why did they need to sign Greg Johnson? They have already good center depth. So our former captain has signed in Ottawa on a great contract too, but he is already 33. They also have Brian Giunta. And a fourth line to Tucker, Fisher, and Deadmarsh. This team is stacked. There's no weakness on this offensive core. Defensively, Redden and Acoin, Phillips and Timonen, so that's where Kimmo Timonen ended up. And they also have Chris Tyrion and Rostislav Klesla. They have nobody in the 70 range on their forward group. Their defensive core only has Klesla as a 70, and he's going to develop maybe higher than that. And in their goaltending, Nabokov and Vernon. Damn, man. And on scratches, they have Donald, Trent Klatt, and Martin Havlat scratched. Those are really good scratches on the offensive side of things, so they're very built up. And if they don't win a Stanley Cup soon in this franchise mode, I will be kind of surprised. Philadelphia, Gagne, Lindros, Recchi, nice top line. Lang, Primo, and Leclerc, great second line. Third line, Koroliuk, Langkow, and Knubel. And fourth line, McCarty, Robitaille, and Jorgen Janssen. Really good depth on offense as well, just like Ottawa. Defensively, Wisnowski and Desjardins, Yuskevich and McGillis, Hatcher, and Traverse. Solid defense, too. Goaltending, they have Dominic Hasek at 40 years old, and they also have Cujo. That would be an insane goaltending combination, Cujo and Hasek. Reminds me of like the 0-2 Red Wings, which I actually probably would have had both those goalies, right? I think. I'm not mistaken. But this is Hasek's first year as the Philadelphia Flyers, so it'll be interesting to see what he could do in Philly. And on scratch-wise, they have Petrov, Donovan, and Wayne Primo. So Wayne Primo is getting to play with Keith Primo, so that's kind of neat. Pittsburgh, Straka, Castles, Yager, Rozov, Herdina, and Sillinger, Ekman, Kraft, and Valachevic. Brooks Lake. Eric Christensen is in Pittsburgh. Was he drafted by them in this? He was, that's right. And Andrei Nazarov. Defensively, Bomister and Zubov. Interesting there. Roosevelt and Oland, Hainsey and Pusher. Goaltending, they have Dan Colucci and Andrew Raycroft. Weird combination. They also have Karostin, who's a generated guy, Melikar, and Brookbank. Okay. San Jose, Friesen, Marlowe, Nolan, Sundstrom, Halpern, Sturm, McEachran, Darby, and Chichu. And then a Dimitrakos, Ryan Johnson, and Rene Corbet. All right. Defensively, Stuart Hannon, Martin, and Mitchell. And then you also have Boscheman and Erskine. Goaltending, they have Thomas Vokoun, we just traded there, but they also do have the Flower Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't really know why they wanted to trade for Thomas Vokoun, but I'm not going to question it. He played 2 games in the preseason, was pretty good for them, so it'll be interesting to see what Vokoun can do as a Shark. And they also have Antti Alto as their only healthy scratch. The Blue is Dimitra Turgeon and Hanzus, great top line. Krivo Krasov, Rod Brindamore returned to St. Louis, where obviously he started his NHL career, so that's kind of neat. And they also have Brendan Shanahan on that line. Really good top 6. Third line, Modine, Boucher, and Conroy. Okay. And they also have Renberg. Cliff Ronning is still there after we dealt him so many years ago. So shout out to Cliff Ronning, who's still holding on. He's been still pretty good. Yeah, he's been pretty solid. And Jochen Hecht. Yeah, this Blues team should win a cup soon, too. Easily. Defensively, Progner and Bugner. I also have Stanislav Nikash, I think it's pronounced. I honestly have no idea. And I don't want to sound like I'm being racist. So, Bryce Salvador, Brett Clark, and Jamie Rivers. Goaltending, I have Roman Turek, and Peter Budaj has made the NHL, okay. And I also have Jeff Sanderson, Mike Wilson. Brian Leach signed there as a healthy scratch, so that's going to be interesting to see if that Blues team can get it done. Tampa shouldn't be too good. Rick Nash, LeCavalier, Mike Johnson. I mean, Nash and LeCavalier is promising. Second line has UC Jokinen at 21 with Brad Richards and Brad Boyes. Third line, Viborny, Holzinger, and Patrick Sharp. Fourth line, Laurent Benoit, who's generated. Antoine Vermette and Manti Miettinen. This is a pretty young team, too, on that 4 group. Defensively, Mara and some guy named Jalen Regier, who was recently drafted, I think. Pavel Kabina, Fedor Teuton, and they also have Nick Schultz and Ben Clymer. Goaltending, they have Steve Shields and Pascal Leclerc. All right. Interesting team in Tampa. Eric Cole's there as well as a healthy scratch, and Chuck Kobasu. Toronto. Berzin, Perreault, and Kristich. Second line, Theo Fleury was brought into the Leafs. That's kind of disgusting. After some time in Florida. They also have Korolev and Hlavich. Jason Blake is just kind of funny. Andy McDonald. Jamal Mayers has made his way to Toronto as well. Bill McCult, Nick Antropov, and Kirk Maltby. Not the best depth. Actually, not some solid depth, but not really on the left side and the right side, I would say, but it's not bad. Defensively, Brian Berard, Brian Pothier, Aaron Miller, and Yoni Pitkinen, and Thomas Caberlet, Nicholas Kronwall. Kind of weird that they're playing Caberlet as a top 6 defenseman over Pitkinen, but I don't know. Goalies, they have Thibault and Antti Niemi. So who knows? Maybe Toronto could win the Stanley Cup because Antti Niemi is a playoff GOAT, so you never know. Was not too good in the AHL last year for Worcester, which means he was dealt from St. Louis, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Scratch, they have Nathan Horton, which is hilarious. Nathan Horton in Toronto. Nico Kapanen and Jason Cullimore. Vancouver, we're almost done through this. Sedins are playing with Gaborik. That's insane. Oh yeah, this is going to be a really good Canucks team because remember they had a bunch of young talent on it when we were looking before. So yeah, Gaborik with the 2 Sedins, great. Some guy named Jelena with Eric Stahl and Generous, who's also another guy that's recently drafted. Jason Williams playing with Varlamov, who was recently drafted. Also Colton Howard. I have Daniel Cleary, Jace Appleby, and Bruce Gardner. So in terms of their forward group, they only have like one 30-year-old, which is kind of insane. Defensively, they have Keith Carney and Sammy Salas, so a little bit of an older defense, though. Henrik Dellinger, Mike Van Ryan, Todd Simpson, Todd Reardon. Yeah, this is definitely a much older defensive core than their forward group. And I can see definitely why they're still losing games. Goaltending, they have Jose Theodore and Manny Legacy, so they definitely need to address their defense and goaltending, but they do have the forward group to build around, which is nice. They also have Brian Allen, Scott Lachance, and Pavel Turnka. And then we finally head to the last team, the Washington Capitals, with Mike Camilleri, Ryan Getzlav, and some guy named Don Ennis. This might be a young team as well. Second line, Louis Eriksson, Andre Nikolitin, and Shane Doan. Third line, Stanislav Jenkimovs, who might be the Alex Ovechkin of the series. You never know. Him with Jan Bulis and Steve Konowalchuk. And a fourth line of Clark MacArthur, Kyle Wellwood, and Fernando Pisani. Yeah, it's one of the worst looking teams we've seen so far. Gonchar, Majewski, Klee, and Hamhuis, Newmelin, and Odeline. Yeah, that defense is kind of rough too, aside from Gonchar. Goaltending, they have Ronald Lupul, who was drafted second round 3 years ago. And they also have Oli Kolzig still at 34. Depth-wise, they have Craig Adams, who's one of the worst GMs. Actually, no, it's not Craig Adams. It's Kevin Adams I'm thinking of. Never mind. Shout out to Craig Adams, though. Chris Beach is the other depth option. All right, so those are the NHL teams. And I got to say, I don't really know who I would say is the best of them. Probably Ottawa or Philadelphia. Those two teams are built up quite strong. So I would guess one of those two teams could win the Cup this season. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Nashville Predators Throwback Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll begin the lockout season. And we'll see if we could get some good stuff from our younger guys, of course, because our young guys are the top priority on this roster. So I'm hoping that we get some good development from our young guys. Hopefully guys like Marita could maybe hit 50 goals a season. I'm not really expecting playoffs, but I just want to have like a good season for the young guys. And then hopefully next year we have guys like Shea Weber start to jump to the NHL, that type of thing. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.